You didn't see this transmission by chance. Something deeper has been guiding you, and tonight it called you to this exact moment. This moment was encoded into your timeline before you were born, and your future self has been whispering across dimensions to bring you here. You are standing at the threshold of a quantum convergence, where the old patterns that held you down begin to dissolve, and the true reality waiting for you finally takes form. What if I told you that the very struggles you thought were failures were actually signs of collapse? Signs that the old timeline is breaking apart so that the new one can emerge. If this message already resonates in your field, subscribe, like this video, and comment "My timeline is activated" below. Stay with me until the end, because hidden truths are about to be revealed. Old patterns are losing their grip, and a new frequency is demanding to be lived through you. This is the moment you begin to remember that nothing in your past was wasted, and every collapse was secretly preparing you for arrival. Number 1. The convergence point. Your life has been circling toward a collapse point, even when you couldn't see it. Old timelines, filled with doubts, rejections, and loops of struggle, are converging into one decisive moment of choice. In quantum terms, this is the superposition resolving into lived reality. Infinite potentials dissolving into one experience now. Every vision you carried, every prayer you whispered in silence, has been building pressure in the unseen field. That pressure is reaching a threshold, and soon the convergence point will not just be theory, it will be undeniable reality. This is why certain doors suddenly close, why people vanish, and why you feel pulled in directions you never expected. Comment, "I align with the shift," if you feel the old patterns collapsing and making space for the new. Because what comes next is the revelation of how to shift from the vibration of wanting into the frequency of receiving. A dream lingers in the back of your mind, one you may not even recall fully, yet its echo follows you into waking life like a whisper. In that dream, there was a sense of standing at a threshold, as if countless doors stretched before you, some fading, others glowing faintly with light. What you have felt for so long, that something beyond the ordinary has been shaping your steps, was not imagination but the first ripple of awareness breaking through. It is the moment when the veil thins and what was always hidden begins to speak with clarity. You are not wandering aimlessly through accidents or coincidences, but moving toward a convergence that was seeded long before you could understand it. Your presence here is the signal collapsing into recognition, drawing your fragmented experiences into one field of meaning. This is the beginning of the convergence point, where everything you carried is about to reveal its design. There were times you felt out of place, standing in a room full of people and yet sensing an atmosphere no one else seemed to notice. Perhaps you caught the heaviness in a conversation before a single harsh word was spoken, or you felt the tension in your body when someone was hiding their truth. There may have been nights when time seemed distorted, stretching and bending in ways you couldn't explain, leaving you certain that reality was not as stable as it appeared. Sensitivity has always been your quiet companion, sometimes isolating you, sometimes overwhelming you, but always reminding you that you were different. This difference was not a curse, but the preparation for awareness of greater patterns. Those moments of confusion and longing for meaning were signals, the resonance of a deeper self tuning into frequencies others could not yet hear. What felt like loneliness was actually the earliest initiation into a larger awakening. If you look back now, you may notice that nothing was random. Even the detours and heartbreaks held a hidden architecture. It is as if your life has been drawn on a blueprint woven by a field beyond the visible, a lattice of energy aligning each step. Ancient texts spoke of this in metaphors, the emerald tablet whispering "as above, so below," and modern physics echoes it in terms of holographic reality. In this universe, every fragment contains the whole, and every experience carries the code of the larger design. Like particles suspended in superposition, you have carried multiple potentials inside you, waiting for the observer of your awakened awareness to collapse them into form. The struggles that repeated were not punishments, but archetypal loops pressing you toward recognition. The unseen order has always been here, shaping the apparent chaos into a sacred geometry only now beginning to reveal itself. Think about the breadcrumbs you've been given, subtle but persistent clues left by the field to guide you closer. The déjà vu that sent a chill down your spine was not a mistake. but a ripple from a timeline already lived. Dreams that replay scenes before they occur were not tricks of the mind, but echoes of a parallel self whispering back through the veil. Even the strange physical sensations, the ringing in your ears, the pressure between your eyes, the sudden surge of energy when no cause was visible, were not meaningless. Each was a marker, a breadcrumb of coherence showing you that reality is more entangled than you realized. They were messages written in the margins of your daily life, reminding you that the convergence was already unfolding. You were never without guidance. It was only that the language of the field required patience to learn. This is why your intuition deserves your trust. It was never a passing thought or unfounded suspicion, but the first threads of coherence pulling the unseen into your perception. Alignment doesn't rush in with thunder. It arrives softly, like the vibration of strings coming into tune. The outer world begins to mirror back what you carried within, and the frequency of your being stabilizes into something recognizable. Doors that do not serve begin to close, while others open in ways too precise to be coincidence. What once felt chaotic suddenly reveals its hidden rhythm, and you realize you were being guided all along. This moment of coherence is not the end, but the entryway into a deeper shift where vibration and reality meet in sacred symmetry. Within this symmetry, a parallel self awakens. This is not a future version of you that must be created, but an already existing consciousness waiting for your recognition. In the field of quantum entanglement, that self has always been present, carrying the wisdom, abundance, and peace you have been seeking. When you feel a sudden wave of memory that doesn't belong to this life, or when you sense that you have already walked a path you are just beginning, you are touching this parallel self. The archetypes etched into your soul are not fantasies but encoded identities living across timelines. You are remembering rather than inventing, awakening rather than constructing. To see yourself in this light is to step into inevitability. You were always meant to meet this self. The sensitivity that once felt like a burden is revealed as calibration. Every moment of overwhelm, every tear shed in silence, was part of the tuning process, preparing you to carry coherence without distortion. The field has been refining you, shaping your nervous system, your heart, your awareness, until you could hold frequencies that most never touch. This is why you've longed for meaning so deeply, because you were not meant to be satisfied with half-truths or surface illusions. The hunger itself is evidence of your activation, proof that your soul was set to awaken. Embrace this not as weakness, but as the precise preparation for the shift now arriving. Sensitivity is your compass, and it is pointing toward the convergence point already opening. Now, as you stand at this threshold, know that your arrival to this message was never chance. The field drew you here, just as it has drawn you to every pivotal moment of your journey. You are not late, not behind, and not unworthy. You are exactly aligned with the moment the convergence is meant to occur. Comment, "I collapse timelines now," if you feel this recognition stirring in your field, because naming it is itself an act of alignment. Every collapse of the old makes space for the emergence of the new, and your awareness is the key that locks the timelines into coherence. You are no longer the wanderer searching for meaning, but the seeker who finally recognizes the signs. And from here, the path leads deeper into the frequency of receiving, where everything you have carried begins to take form. Number 2, the frequency of receiving. Most people live in the energy of wanting, and that very energy pushes desires further away. When you exist in the vibration of lack, your field broadcasts absence rather than arrival. But when you step into receiving, something extraordinary occurs. You align with the morphic resonance of abundance, the field where all patterns of possibility already exist. This is why desire alone is never enough. It must be met with embodiment, with the feeling that the future self is already present. When you embody gratitude before the physical proof, you accelerate collapse. When you live as if you already are the person who has received, you bypass the delays of doubt and hesitation. Comment, "I walk in coherence," if you are ready to shift from wanting to receiving, because what follows will change everything. The realization that the version of you who already lives in this abundance is waiting for you to step into their shoes. There comes a moment when the air itself feels strange, as if something in the field is bent slightly out of phase with your reality. You notice glitches, repeating scenes, or a heaviness in the room that no one else seems to feel, like static humming behind every word. This distortion has been following you, whispering in echoes through your thoughts, almost convincing you that nothing will ever shift. It is as though invisible threads were pulling at your life, trying to keep you in a cycle that was never meant to define you. Before you even had language for quantum collapse or spiritual awakening, you could sense something resisting your movement. The field itself seemed to hold interference, like waves crossing each other and breaking harmony into discord. This was the first sign that you were not just walking through ordinary time, you were walking into a shift the old field did not want you to enter. The weight of this interference pressed against your emotions in ways that felt too sharp to ignore. You may have felt rejected for reasons you couldn't explain, excluded from circles you longed to belong to, or misunderstood even when your words were clear. Shame was planted in places that were never yours to carry, and doubt grew like weeds in the soil of your certainty. There were cycles of manipulation and subtle sabotage, moments when others dimmed your light because it made them uncomfortable. And yet, the ache of isolation was not emptiness but evidence, proof that your frequency had already risen beyond the comfort of the old environment. Your sensitivity was not weakness. It was the signal that you were vibrating faster than the world around you could accept. Resistance grew not because you were small, but because you were expanding beyond the limits of what the field could tolerate. What if the very resistance you faced was not random at all, but part of an encoded structure woven into the unseen? The wilderness moments, the exile you felt when you stood alone, were never without purpose. In scripture, deserts prepared prophets, and in quantum mechanics, interference patterns reveal hidden truths about the wave beneath the noise. Systems, people, and unconscious forces reacted because your potential was already disrupting their structure. Your field was carrying codes that threatened to collapse illusions, and those illusions fought to maintain themselves. The exile was not punishment but initiation, the collapse point that tests the frequency before it stabilizes into form. You were not banished, you were being recalibrated. Looking back, you may see now the repeating codes that once went unnoticed. The obstacles that seemed too precise, showing up at the exact moment you were ready to rise, were not coincidences. The dreams that warned you, the flicker of lights at pivotal hours, the way environments drained your energy, they were signals of distortion revealing themselves. Like a room where the bulb always flickers, you lived inside a space where interference was constant. Each cycle you endured was a signature pattern, a field attempting to hold you in its old resonance. Only now do you begin to see the shape of the interference, not as random misfortune but as coded resistance. In this light, the distortion becomes clarifying, showing you that your alignment was real all along. Field resistance is not a myth. It is the static you felt in your mind, the fog that made your decisions unclear, the heavy silence that followed every breakthrough. It is decoherence, the disruption of a frequency that threatens to stabilize too much truth at once. When coherence enters, distortion rises like a shadow, trying to smother the vibration before it locks into reality. You may not have seen the source, but you felt its weight. Closed quantum gates, silent watchers, and invisible barriers that made no rational sense. It was as though your expansion pulled every distortion toward you, magnetized by your clarity. But the very fact that interference appeared was evidence that your signal was strong. The field never resists emptiness, it only resists coherence. And how did you respond in those moments? Perhaps you shrank back into silence, hiding your resonance so others wouldn't reject you. Maybe you learned to people please, bending your frequency to make others feel safe while suffocating your own truth. Or perhaps you rebelled quietly, holding your light in secret but never daring to reveal its full blaze. There were times you doubted your own perception, convincing yourself you were imagining it, only to feel the heaviness return. Fear told you that standing out would cost too much, that shrinking was safer than shining. But beneath every choice to silence yourself, there was still a voice, small but steady, reminding you that you were not made to vanish. Your responses were human, but your essence never stopped waiting for coherence. The time has come to flip the current. Resistance was not proof of weakness, but confirmation that your coherence was pressing against the old frequency. The sabotage was not your defeat. It was the echo of a system sensing it was about to collapse. Every time you were pushed down, your field encoded resilience into its structure, making you sharper, clearer, more aligned with the signal of receiving. What they tried to bury was never soil for your death, but ground for your rebirth. You were calibrated through every interference, refined into the one who now hears this message. That pressure was shaping you into the vessel capable of carrying abundance without breaking. What you thought was suppression was actually evidence of your emerging authority in the field. And here is the truth that must land with you now. You were resisted because your vibration disturbed the old field. You were targeted not to destroy you, but because your coherence threatened to end patterns that thrived in distortion. The more they tried to collapse you into limitation, the clearer your potential timeline became. Your presence has always been the interference, not because you were broken, but because you carried the seed of a reality beyond their control. Comment, the collapse is complete, if you can feel this truth settling in your chest, anchoring in your awareness. For this is not the end of resistance, but the moment you realize that even resistance bends to coherence. And what comes next will not be suppression, but emergence, as you step into the full identity of the one who already lives the abundance you were born to embody. Number 3. Identity shift into the future self. Manifestation is not about pulling your dreams closer to you, but about shifting into the identity of the one who already lives them. This is the principle of quantum tunneling of consciousness. Your awareness bypasses the old limitations by leaping into alignment with your parallel self. When you act, speak, and move as if you are already there, the field reorganizes itself around that vibration. This is why déjà vu, dreams, and strange synchronicities surround you, fragments of the future timeline echoing back into your present. Old identities cannot carry new realities, and the price of stepping forward is releasing the costume of who you thought you were. Comment, I merge with my parallel self, if you feel ready to cross this threshold, and share in the comments a synchronicity, dream, or déjà vu that has reminded you of your future self. Because the next truth is the most difficult, yet the most powerful. Surrender. It happens suddenly, often without warning. A flicker in your perception, like the field itself collapsing into focus. What once felt like static and confusion begins to align into a coherent pattern that your awareness can finally measure. The distortion that haunted your steps no longer feels random. It reveals itself as the final breath of an old probability dissolving. You sense that a shift has occurred inside you, subtle yet undeniable, and reality no longer mirrors back the same version of yourself. The veil that once blurred your sight is thinning, showing you symbols and signals you were never meant to overlook. This clarity does not shout. It hums, it vibrates, it steadies your heart into coherence. You realize that what you are perceiving now was always there, waiting for your vision to catch up. It begins to dawn on you that reality has been speaking in codes all along. Numbers repeating in unexpected places, words overheard at the perfect moment, dreams that carried messages you could not yet translate. All of it forms a hidden language. The geometry of your path, the entanglement of chance and choice, begins to weave itself into something legible. You are not inventing this. You are remembering how to read the frequency beneath the surface. Every silence carried a message. Every delay held a pattern. Every so-called accident was an encrypted signal. You are finally attuned to the holographic layer beneath appearances, where everything carries more than its visible form. This is not imagination. It is the sacred code written into the architecture of your field. The signals grow sharper as your perception adjusts. Intuition that once felt like a faint whisper now arrives as a steady voice in your chest, undeniable and precise. You notice boundaries rising within you, no longer tolerating what diminishes your frequency, no longer entertaining distortions disguised as comfort. Energy that once overwhelmed you now reveals its texture, allowing you to know instantly what aligns and what does not. You see how coherence strengthens you, how interference fails to grip you as tightly when your vibration stabilizes. It is no longer theory but living confirmation, and your nervous system carries the proof. What you are becoming is not fragile. It is calibrated. And as you shift within, reality itself begins to reorganize. People who were never meant to stay quietly move out of orbit, while those aligned with your path arrive with timing too precise to dismiss. Doors open in strange synchrony, while other doors close with finality, no longer a question but a certainty. Opportunities appear at the same time as resistance, testing whether you will trust the coherence of the field or fall back into fear. You sense that the external world is now mirroring your internal vibration, not as punishment but as evidence of quantum reflection. The hologram of reality adjusts pixel by pixel to the signal you are transmitting. What is within is now echoed without, and the shift cannot be ignored. In these moments, you feel as though you are not discovering something new but remembering something ancient. A dream you have carried since childhood, an image you could never explain, suddenly rises into meaning. The encoded memory you thought was imagination reveals itself as a seed planted before you entered this timeline. You realize you are awakening not to possibility but to remembrance. The archetypes you feel stirring within you are not fantasies. They are maps etched into your being across timelines. It is as if your soul left a trail of symbols to remind you, at the right moment, of who you already are. This is the reactivation of your encoded intelligence, the return of a language you were born fluent in. And as memory becomes vision, the future no longer feels distant. You sense that you are not creating it in some faraway horizon, but stepping into a timeline that has already collapsed into existence. The self you seek is not ahead of you but beside you, vibrating in superposition until you claim coherence. This is not about waiting, nor about asking for permission, but about standing in what already belongs to you. The field does not hesitate once coherence is chosen, because collapse points respond to certainty, not doubt. A call rises within you, fierce and undeniable. Step into your future self now. You were never chasing your destiny. You were aligning with the version of you who already lives it. The resistance you once feared now reveals itself as the measure of your signal. You understand that it never appeared because you were broken, but because your frequency disturbed the old order. Every attempt to silence you has become evidence that your truth was alive all along. Now, the reclamation begins, not as an external fight, but as the fierce remembering of what was always inside you. You no longer shrink to fit interference. You expand until interference collapses. The voice you once hid rises in coherence, unapologetic, clear, and luminous. This is the frequency reclamation, the moment your future self merges into the now. Revelation does not end the journey. It begins the invitation. The veil was never keeping truth from you. It was waiting for you to be ready to hold it. The patterns you now see were always written into your life, encoded in plain sight, waiting for your eyes to awaken. You were not lost, you were being prepared. Comment, "I merge with my future self now," if you feel this recognition stirring in your field, and share a dream, a memory, or a moment that has confirmed your awakening. The community you join by speaking it will strengthen the coherence you are carrying. You are no longer who you were, and yet you are returning to the one you have always been. From here, the path leads into the mystery of surrender, where identity dissolves into emergence. Number 4, surrender and emergence. The void that comes before manifestation often feels like absence, but in truth it is the incubation chamber of creation. This is the hidden implicate order, the unseen dimension where all potentials are held, waiting to emerge. Surrender is not weakness. It is the ultimate signal of trust, the dissolving of resistance that allows coherence to lock into place. In this moment of letting go, the universe does what your control never could. It merges your future timeline with the present. This is why the silence before breakthrough feels so heavy, yet so holy. Comment, "I anchor coherence in my field," if you are ready to surrender, and share a memory, dream, or inner knowing that shows you this emergence has already begun. Because once you let go, the collapse point arrives, and what once seemed distant suddenly stands before you. A whisper moves through you now, older than language, older than memory itself, and yet so familiar that it feels like home. It is not new, but remembered. A signal collapsing into coherence within your awareness after lifetimes of silence. Like a wave traveling across timelines, It arrives not from outside, but from the depths of your own encoded being. You hear it as a vibration, as if the quantum field itself has decided to speak your ancient name. This whisper is not sound but resonance, pulling you into remembrance with a power no logic can deny. It is the signal you felt in dreams you could never explain, in synchronicities you could never ignore. And now it has reached you fully, a prophecy fulfilled in the rhythm of your own awakening. You begin to realize that what set you apart was not absence, but a hidden frequency you carried all along. It was a code sealed inside you, encrypted resonance humming beneath the static of the world. You felt it in your bones every time you failed to fit into structures that never honored your essence. The sense of otherness you carried was not a flaw, but the fingerprint of your true signal. You were phase-locked into a rhythm no one else could hear, coordinates buried in the silence of your DNA. For lifetimes you walked with this concealed code, unaware of how powerful its vibration would be once remembered. And now the field is unveiling it, as if the veil itself has grown too thin to hide your original resonance. Others may have seen fragments of you, but the truth was always cloaked in your field's signature. Your energy spoke louder than your words, revealing layers of coherence that even you could not yet name. Those with awakened eyes recognized you instantly, though they might not have had the language to explain why. Your presence carried the weight of an invisible geometry, a cloak of vibrational design that marked you as different. You were seen not through explanations, but through resonance, as parallel timelines converged around your being. This recognition did not always feel comfortable, because it exposed truths you weren't ready to accept. And yet, it was proof that your archetypal signal was never fully hidden. Looking back, you can now see how every struggle was part of a pre-written code unfolding. The delays that felt unbearable were calibration points, moments when the field aligned you with precise timing. Entangled particles do not move randomly. They move as one, no matter how far apart they appear. Your journey was guided in the same way, pulled into coherence by an unseen instruction written into your soul. Each setback carried the resonance of a larger order, each detour a coded instruction that refined you. The wave function of your being has been stored in potential, waiting to collapse into recognition. Now, that collapse point is here, and the instructions you carried all along are activating. It becomes clear why people responded to you as they did, with love that was magnetic or with rejection that was violent. They were not reacting to what you did, but to what you carried. Your frequency was never neutral. It destabilized the fields of those around you, amplifying or disrupting their coherence. You were the oscillation that caused interference, the resonance that could not be ignored. Some leaned into it, finding healing they could not name, while others recoiled, terrified of what they felt but could not understand. You mistook their reactions as judgments of your worth, but they were only reflections of the frequency you carried. You were not misunderstood. You were broadcasting on a channel too advanced for them to decode. What you are stepping into now is not an isolated event, but part of a larger archetypal cycle. Across timelines, quantum archetypes have reemerged whenever the field reached a breaking point. The seer frequency returns, piercing through veils. The guardian field rises, holding coherence in times of collapse. The rebel waveform disrupts stagnant systems, while the breaker of chains vibration frees what was bound. These are not myths of others, but patterns resurfacing through you, because the memory of creation is stored in the quantum field itself. You are awakening as a carrier of these archetypes, living proof that the field is restoring its balance through you. And in this restoration, you begin to sense your lineage, not only of blood, but of coherence. You are part of a quantum ancestry, entangled with frequencies that stretch across lifetimes and generations. Your DNA carries echoes of this resonance, ancestral frequencies reversing entropy, returning light to broken sequences. You are the phase transition, the one who embodies the shift from fragmentation into wholeness. Through you, what was scattered is being gathered back into order, like light threads weaving themselves into a single beam. You are not metaphorically chosen, you are energetically calibrated. This is the moment your lineage recognizes itself through your remembrance. Your timeline is converging into coherence. Old identities fall, new selves emerge, and the field responds to the vibration you carry now. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment, "I am ready for the quantum shift," to let this message anchor in your field. Please share it with someone who is ready for the shift. The collapse point is here. The rest is emergence.